So here's another thing that I wanted to ask you about. I see so many benefits to this that both at a societal level and an individual level, not all of them are immediately apparent. I'm going to give you a piece of business advice now. Don't you just love TV, commentators
Hey,
that give you,
I'm open.
All right. No extra charge for this.
Excellent.
Here's my idea. You've talked about college campuses. It seems to me your San Luis Obispo is the home of Cal Poly.
Right.
And I don't know, what is there, 15,000, 20,000 kids there?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm
It's
not
big,
sure
fairly
myself.
big.
Yeah.
But how about when my parents sent me to college with my little car that would go 24 hours a day, sometimes when it shouldn't have been going.
Right,
I'd be coming back from a frat party, or I'd be, my friends would be joyriding at whatever. That strikes me as the downside of a college kid having a car. Now all of a sudden you've got cars that are computer controlled that don't necessarily have to start between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. or something like that. Moreover, you could go to Cal Poly and say, look, here's what you get for your tuition in addition to the engineering curriculum and the access to the library is that Johnny or Susie gets 50 hours, I just made that up, but gets X number of hours per semester of a car, which when and only when he or she needs. How do you like the idea?
Well, I would say that's a great idea. It's going on all over the country right now. But the thing that I am even more excited about now is the next level of participation, which when you have multifamily dwellings, they're now going to be building in car sharing parking spots. They're going to be building in charging stations, bike sheds, so that when people live in an area that they're either a multi-level or a complex that has maybe 100 parking spots, in the future now you're going to be seeing it required to have 1 to 3 parking spots for shared vehicles.
Yes, sir.
So that the people in the complex can use it, and again, it reduces congestion. It reduces CO2.
Yes, and were you not saying it actually reduces the number of parking spaces because it reduces the number of cars? In other words, these cars are used by multiple people. So you were talking about real estate developers before the show, or you were talking about this. If you don't mind sharing that with the audience, that's a fascinating, that's one of the 8 or 10 ideas that never would have popped into my mind about this.
Yeah, well, the city of San Francisco is a good example. When you build a a complex, that's required to have car sharing, and the benefit to the developer is by putting a car sharing spot in there, you're going to need 2 or 3 less regular parking spots because people are going to be sharing the car. And so it saves the developer money. It's better for the people that buy into the development, and it's again taking cars off the road and reducing congestion. So it's becoming a political thing. I can tell you, the county of San Luis Obispo has signed up. The city of San Luis Obispo has given us a parking spot right in City Hall at the main bus terminal.
And that parking's, not exactly easy to find in San Francisco, is it?
No. Even downtown San Luis Obispo, we have our congestion issues. I mean, you may have to drive around the block or down the street, but again, the fact that we've got such support in our community behind us. The county and the city, the Board of Supervisors have joined. I mean, we're looking at going into Morro Bay right now. One of the things that we do, we would love to come down to Ventura County. We need we work on a grassroots basis. We go into a community, we talk to the chamber, we talk to the city council, and we say, in order for us to bring a $25,000 car out here, we need to get 30 members signed up in your community. If we can get 30 members signed up, we'll bring a car out. And if somebody has to sign up and it maybe takes a 60-day window till you get your 30 members, we'll retroactively make your membership once the car becomes available. So, and we're doing that right now in Morro Bay. I'm 12 members away from my 30 to get a car in Morro Bay.
That's fantastic. Now, when I'm trying to hearken my mind back to when I first met Mark, and we were talking about various of the marketing ideas that you since have put in place. And I seem to recall something about a visitors program. So in other words, the concept is, take a vacation from your car. In other words, you don't need to drive to San Luis Obispo anymore, because when you get here, Amtrak being an example, you're just minutes away from walking into your shared car.
Yeah, there's a website called slowcarfree.org, and
So that's slocarfree.org.
right, slocarfree.org,
Okay.
and you can go to that website, and there are restaurants and hotels that if you come to San Luis Obispo on the train and leave your car behind, you get discounts. And when you come there, we give you all kinds of alternative forms of transportation, Fun Ride being one of them, renting bicycles, public transportation, there's Ride On, there's a lot of things that people can do in San Luis County. Like we say, take a vacation from your car.
Yep.
And go on a little adventure and break out of that security seatbelt.
Yeah, that's great. I want to ask you a little bit more about these electric vehicles because I know so many of our viewers are interested in the subject. We're just months away from the advent of the Nissan Leaf and the Chevy Volt, and
Right.
it seems that anybody with his head screwed on right has at an OEM level has a fairly aggressive EV program, which is not to say that hydrogen doesn't have a role. I personally don't see it due to the infrastructure issue, but I know there are people who disagree with me on that. But let's just stay with EVs for a second and talk about where you see this going from a trajectory point of view. You mentioned you're in discussions with some of these people. Is it cricket for me to ask you a little bit more about that?
That would be fine. I mean, we know somebody at Nissan, and we're talking to them about possibly getting a Nissan Leaf, maybe even before they come out to the general public, so that people can try one. We have an associate in Santa Maria, California, that converts cars. I went and drove a Ford Focus station wagon that converted completely over. So you can convert existing cars as well.
Yep.
It's about the charging stations and the infrastructure, which you mentioned. In order for electric cars to be successful, we're going to have to build out the infrastructure and make it easy for people to charge, and that is what initially killed the electric car, that there was no infrastructure. So we not only have to make the cars, but we have to create the places for them to charge.
Right.
And they're calling, I mentioned earlier about Frost and Sullivan, they're calling for 500% growth in car sharing. Something in the range of 9 million people will be sharing 500,000 cars.
Wow.
By 2016, and almost half of those will be electric vehicles, they're predicting. So there's been a lot of mega trends, what we call, that have pushed this forward, and one being the tough economic times we're in. Money's tight. We know in San Luis Obispo County, 61% of the households have more than one car. So if you're a struggling young family and you have 2 cars, there's money on the table.
Absolutely.
You can potentially sell your second car, use public transportation to a certain extent, join something like a Fun Ride so that you have a vehicle when you need it. And another thing about Fun Ride that I think is very unique, you can book a vehicle up to 3 months in advance, yet have only a 4-hour window to cancel. So if you absolutely need a car on a regular basis, you can book it. But if you know 4 hours prior to that time, you can cancel it with no penalty.
That's fantastic. It's a great idea.